The virtual rainbow brings together LGBTQ+ youth and their families, community leaders, professionals, and healthcare providers to learn and celebrate diversity and inclusion. Thank you for joining, everyone, and welcome.
Really, this is what a great experience this is, and really want to congratulate Paul and his colleagues for pulling this off in this way. This is amazing. So really a pleasure to be here with you all today. Like Paul said, I'm the executive director of Tumbleweed, which is a youth serving organization in Billings, Montana. We provide services to close to 800 youth and young adults a year. Probably more than that if we were to get an actual count. But our vision at Tumbleweed is to end youth homelessness in our community. And we say that with a great deal of boldness and also optimism that that can actually happen if we can create systems and programs that are really focused first and foremost on really meeting the needs of people who are most disproportionately represented in the youth homeless population, which is youth of color and LGBTQ youth. And so, Paul, I'm sorry it's so awkward, but if you can move to the next slide. So I was seeing we serve over 800 youth and young adults a year, as young as 12 in some of our programs, and we serve through the age of 24 in some of our programs. So not all of our programs serve every single one of those ages, but we do have a wide spectrum of comprehensive services really focused on that vision of ending youth homelessness in our community. And so we have crisis intervention and a prevention side to what we do, which is where we serve the bulk of the youth and young adults that we're honored to provide services to. So we are in a really cool collaboration and partnership with our public school system here in Billings, where we're able to provide on-site crisis intervention and support services in our high schools. And so Tumbleweed contracts with our school district, and we have on-site crisis counselors and support providers in those high schools to provide very low barrier, easy to access services. We also do some mentorship programs in collaboration with United Way, where we're helping to bridge the gap for very high risk youth who will be entering high school, because we know that a lot of youth and young adults, they may lose their connection to that support system at 8th grade when they're moving into a high school setting. So providing some supports there. We provide services to young people who are going to age out of the foster care system. It's a very high risk population for people who are aging out of the transition or aging out of the foster care system at age 18. That system has does the best that it can, but for a percentage of youth, which you know, there's different numbers, so anywhere from 15% to 25% of youth who age out of the foster care system are aging out directly to the streets. And so we provide support services starting at age 14 so that youth who are going to age out of the transition or age out of the foster care system are able to transition to something that is more stable and focused for them on housing and education and employment. We then have also a drop-in center that we offer daytime services to youth and young adults who are literally experiencing homelessness or who are at very high risk of homelessness. And so they're unstably housed or they are, you know, fall into a category where they're more at risk to experience homelessness. And so that program is an on-site program where we have a center. We offer basic needs services such as showers, access to laundry services, you know, access to case management, access to mental health support with our clinical director. We have a clinical side to what we do there. Really, that program is focused first and foremost, well, all of our programs, on developing a relationship a trusting relationship. And so we say that all the time, that the relationship is the intervention, and that's where we start. So of those 800 to 1,000 youth and young people that we serve in a year, many of them have come from different systems in our in the youth world. And so they have come from the foster care system, child welfare system. They have come from the juvenile justice system, and or they have come from the youth mental health system. And so what has happened for many young people is that over the course of their development, they have had a systems approach. They've been in a system and have not been able to develop a permanent connection and lasting connection. And what we know is that for long-term successful outcomes for at-risk youth, any youth, any human, in my opinion, is that having that permanent connection and knowing that there's even just one caring adult in your life that you can count on is the number one predictor for positive outcomes later in life. And so we focus all of our programs on that relationship. And really, I could talk and talk and talk and talk about Tumbleweed. And so we better move on because I don't have much time. But Paul, if you want to go ahead and move to the next slide. Here's what to kind of zero in here on why you're all part of this incredible summit is to talk a bit about the disproportionate number of youth and young people who experience homelessness and who are LGBTQ. And so what we know is that LGBTQ youth are almost 2.5 times more likely to experience homelessness than another youth. And that 20 to 40% of the population of youth experiencing homelessness are LGBTQ. So that's a national statistic. Here locally in Billings, I think that our rate is anywhere between 40 to 50% of the youth and young people that we serve are experiencing homelessness. And are LGBTQ, I'm sorry. And that family rejection is the number one reason that LGBTQ youth experiencing homelessness end up on the streets or couch surfing or unstably housed in some way. Family conflict in general is the number one reason for youth homelessness. But even deeper with the LGBTQ population is that the family rejection is really the reason that youth end up on the streets. And so what we see there, just the trauma for being on the streets, one day, 1 minute, in our opinion, of youth or young people being on the streets is incredibly trauma inducing. And so that in and of itself creates trauma that needs to be dealt with at some point. But then when you are dealing with family rejection, and the very system that is supposed to support you, whether that is your chosen family, whether that is family that you might consider through one of your systems, so a foster family, you are in the youth mental health system, or you're coming out of the juvenile justice system, the trauma that is created from that family or system rejection is tremendous. And so at Tumbleweed, we have really focused on that, how to kind of reprogram around some of that to really meet the unique needs that come with that, LGBTQ youth experiencing homelessness, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. We also know that LGBTQ youth experiencing homelessness endure much higher levels of adversity. And so what I mean by that is they are they're at much higher risk for like sex trafficking or labor trafficking. They're at much higher risk for being taken advantage of on the streets. They're at much higher risk for having a mental health issue. They're at much higher risk of suicide, which I'm sure that you've heard some about over the summit, or you will. And so all of those things are things that over the last almost 4 years that I've been at Tumbleweed, we have really been working to focus on. We know this about the population of youth that experiences homelessness. And so how do we align as an organization around best practices to do that? So if you want to move to the next slide, Paul. So what we have done is we have kind of braided together best practices from lots of different organizations and initiatives across the nation. And then here locally in our state, we have partnered with Empower Montana. We have partnered with the Pride Foundation and some others to really look at how do we create a space, whatever that space may be, where everyone feels welcome. So some of the work that we do is we also do outreach work. So we are literally like in a vehicle on sidewalks, doing street outreach and case management on sidewalks. And so even looking at how do we create that space in a way that everyone feels welcome, and leaning really hard into the idea that what really is going to help create the change is the relationship, and acknowledging that LGBTQ youth experiencing homelessness have different layers of trauma. They have different needs. So first acknowledging that is really important because it makes the focus on the relationship different. And so we have taken it seriously to do the best that we can. And we have a lot of work to do around this, but we have done some things. So I thought I'd share with you the things that we have done to create that space where everyone is feeling welcome, whether it's on a phone call, whether it's through our website, whether it's on a sidewalk, whether it's at a school or in our drop-in center, where we are really taking the lead in the community in creating that. So one thing, and these are not things that I made up, so I would encourage you to do some Googling out there. Much of this, I think, if I look at this now, is probably from True Colors United, which is just a great resource. But what we started doing initially is putting up visual cues. And so, and I didn't introduce my pronouns. Sorry about that. So on our email signatures, we all introduce ourselves with our pronouns. Mine are she, her, hers. We do this then also with youth when we introduce ourselves, because it just gives them permission. They know this is a safe space for them to talk about their pronouns and how they identify. And then also what we've done around our space, and even what we're working on now that we've started doing street outreach with COVID, is our vehicles, our front door, all of our doors and windows, our offices, that they all have signage that really expresses that this is an open space. So for us, we have stickers from True Colors. We have some local sorts of signage that we use from different organizations that we partner with here that display that this is a safe place for you to come and be yourself, and that we're going to meet you right where you're at. We have done a lot of work on community board and staff development as an organization. It really is a culture, looking at this, looking at really its equity. So to embrace equity in a new way in our organization really comes from the very top of the organization down. And so what we've done is some board training at the board level. They're there, of course, they're the governing body for the organization, and they do drive some of our decisions. And so at the board level, really getting around the idea that really just embracing first and foremost that LGBTQ youth experiencing homelessness are disproportionately represented in the population, and that they have unique needs that need met. And so we've done that. At a staff level, we have done extensive training on language and pronouns, and how to have the conversations that really open it up for youth to know that this is a safe place. And then at a community level, we've been really proud to be able to partner over the last about 18 months on a few different community trainings that were very basic. So we partnered with Empower Montana. We partnered with I'm not going to remember now. Doesn't matter. Anyways, another organization at a state level, and then someone here locally to do some community trainings. Again, really focused and aligned on what's the language we're going to use as a community that really creates that safe space, because that matters a lot. And what we found in the trainings with my staff, with our board, and with the community is that what might look like discomfort with the idea of LGBTQ conversations and open conversations about that was more about people not knowing what words to use, not understanding the language. And so that has been incredibly, I think, beneficial in terms of us creating that space where everyone feels welcome. And that doesn't just happen at Tumbleweed, that needs to happen in the community. And so we've taken the lead on that over the last 18 months. We also have begun to work on our paperwork, forms, and processes. So anything that a youth may interact with to access services, we are working on to create that space where they are acknowledged for who they are. And so we worked with actually True Colors United to help us reword a lot of our paperwork and the way we're asking questions in a way that is more trauma informed, but also just acknowledging that people may want to use a different pronoun. They may not want to use their legally given name. And so being able to be very nimble and flexible with that, and having it be more of an open process when people come into our services is another thing we've done. And then this reprogramming part I mentioned just a little bit earlier, we're really still we still have a lot of work to do here, but shifting, knowing that 40 to 50% of the population that Tumbleweed serves is LGBTQ youth, we really have been working to change our program approach to be more youth-centered so that we're putting youth voice at the middle of the table and at all decisions, because really they are the experts. And so that is something that we continue to work on, and are building a youth action board. Some of you on the call may already be involved in this at a state level or locally, but really looking at how do we make youth voice the center of everything that we do, and then partner in the community with incredible organizations that are already doing LGBTQ specific work. Because that's another thing that needs to happen in best practice programs, is that there are things that are specifically for LGBTQ youth. And we have some good programs here in town that we're beginning to partner with to do that. So I think that's it. Paul, if you want to move to the next slide, I think it probably just has my email address. So this goes really fast. So I guess I would open it up for questions and see if anybody has anything they want to add.
And Erika, I think that's your last slide, so.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, I guess I didn't send you the other one. You have my email address, but sure, happy to answer any questions that people have.
Great. Please just put those again in the Q&A if you want to keep them anonymous, or you can send them to everybody via the chat box. You can just choose all attendees, or all participants will reach our presenters and other attendees. And Erika, while we're doing that, maybe I'll just ask you, do you have any, what are your short-term or long-term plans, maybe throughout the summer? Can you just give us a sense of kind of what's on your agenda, coming around the corner, or?
Yeah, I can do my best. Like everybody, we're trying to develop like a plan here that is going to make sense. We're really focusing on housing, education, and employment, and specifically for youth and young adults experiencing homelessness and all of the kind of specific challenges that come with that. Those really are the three buckets that we feel are best to focus on. So over the summer, we're looking to build some transitional housing programs, and also expand our street outreach program, because we are continuing to encourage youth and young adults to shelter in place. And so, yeah, not sure exactly what the summer is going to look like, but we are focusing on housing and employment.
We do have a comment. Somebody's just posted, it's sad to see how many individuals are struggling via homelessness, but we're lucky to have organizations and programs such as Tumbleweed that do so much to bring positive change.
Oh, that's a very nice. Thank you. It takes a whole community for certain. I mean, we're really focused on that at Tumbleweed also, is really developing a systems approach and a community response, because that is really what ends youth homelessness, is when a community responds to it. And so sure, appreciate that comment.
Great. Erika, I don't see any other comments, so we'll give folks one last chance to type in any comments or questions, again, in the Q&A box or the chat box, if you like. And not seeing anything coming in. Any last words, Erika, for us?
We're always happy here to share what we've learned and know. And so I think people will have access to my contact information, Paul. So feel free to reach out anytime and brainstorm with us if you have an idea in your community about how to do this, because we've learned a lot by doing the wrong thing, and we're happy to share the knowledge that we have. So, and thank you for moving, for being engaged in this. It means the world to youth and young people in our communities here locally and nationally. So thank you.